First and foremost, we are recording this episode at a temporary location, so bear with me if the lighting or the audio is giving you any issues. We got Belal Muhammad taking on Vicente Luque for the second time. This is the rematch. They last fought in 2016. I'm not exactly sure why anybody thinks this fight's going to play out differently. I know Muhammad has been stringing off some victories against guys that are way past their prime in lower level competition. We'll get into that fight. Don't want to give you guys too much of a spoiler alert which way the teller's going there. Although I think a lot of you guys know. I basically had to scrape myself off the road and drag myself through the front door to be able to record this episode. As a lot of you guys know that follow me on IG and Twitter, the judges beat me down in a brutal way for UFC 273. We're going to be doing a recap of that card. You guys know I was out there live for the event. It was a dreadful card for me. I think we should have had the 3-for-3 sweep. In fact, I know we should have had the 3-for-3 sweep. I'm going to be getting into that here. The judges really beat me down. With no further ado, let's jump right into today's episode.
The teller.
It's another day. Left jab, right jab. This is MMA. Mixed martial arts, quick body parts, undefeated when I pick 'em. Who the champ, who the victim? Looking in my crystal ball, I predict the winner. Never stop fighting. If you lose, keep your chin up. Know how the game go. I'm a smart fella. Welcome to the show. This the MMA fortune teller.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.
What is up, you guys? We're back and we're talking fights. Like I said, no permanent location for me to record right now, but that's not going to stop me from getting this content out to you guys. You guys know how we do. No excuses here. Every fight card, especially in regards to the UFC, will be coming out to you guys. And big things coming up. I'm excited for you guys to see how things progress here. So bear with me for today's show. We had the rematch here. Luque and Muhammad last fought about, 6 years ago. And, as much as I was joking about it in the beginning, the rematch is somewhat deserving for Muhammad. And I kind of understand why they're clashing here. Caio Borralho taking on Gadzhi. Omargadzhiev. Excuse me if I'm butchering these names, man. Both those are tongue twisters. I know the Brazilian puts a little bit of a twist on his name there. Ange Fialho taking on Miguel Baeza. Decent fight there. If I'm being quite honest, this is not the biggest of cards. I'm a little surprised to see this fight card being the big ESPN fight card. The main card will be taking place live on ESPN. But you guys know the routine. I'm not going to sit here and complain about a UFC fight card because I'm excited about a lot of these fights, period. So it is what it is. Big boy Chris Barnett steps back in there after the big-time knockout victory he had recently. And a lot of fighters that are trying to make a name for themselves in the game. A lot of fighters that have a lot to prove. Okay, so we'll be going through this entire card here momentarily. You guys know the routine. We got to take a look back at the giant UFC 273 card. I was out there. I drove out to Jacksonville. I had a blast out there. For those of you guys that follow me on Instagram, you guys saw some of the footage I put on my story. I have a lot more footage I'm going to be uploading here as soon as I get a moment, probably later today or by tomorrow. I'll be uploading some cool clips outside the arena, talking with the fans, and a variety of cool stuff there. So go follow me, MMA Fortune Teller _. Please like this video, subscribe if you guys have not already. I appreciate all your guys' support. What else? I mean, I think it's about that time that we jump into the recap here. I got a lot to say. So the first fight of the card was Julio Arce, who took on Daniel Santos. If I'm keeping it real with you guys, I had this fight streaming on the phone as I was right outside the arena. There was a cool little bar there. Had the fight going. I was watching it. Julio Arce was using his counter striking pretty effectively and got the job done there. So shout out to Arce and a guy that I do respect in the game there. Piera Rodriguez takes out Kay Hansen. A little bit of a frustrating fight for me here because this was a fight that I was very close to making an official play, and I did hesitate. I saw Piera get taken down throughout a couple of her fights, even fights that she won. I saw her get taken down a little bit, and although Kay Hansen's been struggling mightily, she has had some success with takedowns and using her jiu-jitsu. We know they praise the jiu-jitsu skills that she has. You guys know I did pick Pierre Rodriguez to win the fight, and she did come through, but I should have had that as an official play. Alexei Oleinik takes out Jared Vandera. That was a newly added fight. Always happy to see Oleinik get a W, man. A guy that I had the pleasure of interviewing and only my second interview, and he took the time to chat it up with me, man. He's a crafty grappler. This guy's always pulling off these unorthodox types of submissions, and still up there in age and outclassing these guys that are younger than him and newer to the game. So shout out to Oleinik. Mike Mallet knocks out Mickey Gall. Mike Mallet undefeated now, or excuse me, they have him as 8-1. For some reason, I was thinking he was undefeated, but Mike Mallet, a guy that is, still, he keeps that momentum going, coming off Dana White's Contender Series, the team alpha male striker. This guy is a dangerous fighter, and we continue to keep an eye on him. Mickey Gall is always a game fighter, but he's a guy that I do question as far as being a legitimate UFC fighter, fighting solid guys like Mike Mallet. I do question him being in that type of conversation. So we'll see how he bounces back. Now we hit the first play of the card. Raquel Pennington takes out Aspen Ladd. Like I said, for those of you guys that follow me on IG, you guys saw I was right there when Pennington came out, man. I had a video of her coming out. She walked right by me. I was pumped up. I was down on the floor. And this was my first play that I had for the card here, and Raquel Pennington came through for me. Things were looking like they were going to go very smoothly. I grabbed Raquel Pennington at -195. In all actuality, a lot of money came in on Ladd throughout the week, and you could have got a way better line. At one point in time, Pennington was a -155. Excuse me. I did double up on her a little bit there. Thought there was some great value. Pennington controls the fight. She's just a lot more of a seasoned fighter. She's been in there with way higher level of competition. I felt very comfortable in the play, and that's why I went in on her there. And unfortunately, the rest of the night did not play out as smoothly as that. So after the Pennington play, we go up to the Anthony Hernandez victory over Josh Fremd. Shout out to Hernandez getting in the win column once again. Ian Gary counter strikes his way to victory over Darian Weeks. The momentum continues. Ian Gary getting frisky on the mic after the fight, but he's going to have to show more to me, if I'm being quite honest. If we're going to start praising him like this next big top prospect, he's going to have to go in there and kind of bring the fight a little bit more. So I know he likes to counter strike, but I think he's going to have to bring some energy to his fights because, he might get some beautiful counter knockouts here and there, but some of his fights are going to be lackluster performances like that, in my opinion, if I'm being honest. Mark Madsen defeats Vince Pichel in a very closely contested fight. Madsen uses his wrestling all of a sudden, finally, after the performance he put on his last fight against Clay Guida, where he was very hesitant there. What do you know? It helps you get the victory there. So Mark Madsen learning from his mistake in his last fight, but barely really edges that fight out. It was a close fight, but props to Madsen for getting the W column there. We go on to my second play of the card, which you guys are going to hear me chew off your guys' ears a little bit here. Tecia Torres loses a split decision to Mackenzie Dern. I thought that Torres did more than enough to get this fight, to get the W here. I'll pull up my bet right up, but this is really what I want to pull up here. If you go to MMADecisions.com, you could see that almost everybody was in agreement that Torres won that first round. 77.1% of people agreed she won that first round. The third round was undisputable. She won that 91% of people's eyes. And Dern, of course, did win that second round. I just don't understand why the judges gave during the fight there. It was very frustrating to watch. And to be quite honest, as I lost that fight, when I know Torres should have won the fight, I said, you know what? I'm not going to sweat it because it wasn't a giant play in the first place. And I had a giant 8-unit max play coming up that I felt very confident was going to hit. So I wasn't stressing it because it was still going to be another profitable night. And there you see the Tecia Torres play that I grabbed that dog odds plus 105. That I feel the judges stiffed me, but it is what it is. I know some of you guys are going to be annoyed. It's my opinion. I feel strongly about it. I feel very strongly about it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be out here chirping about it. You guys know I've taken losses in the past. I think Torres deserved to win that fight. And as we move on Kianzad Chimaev takes out Gilbert Burns in a fight that was a lot closer than I thought it was. I'll be honest here. I thought that Chimaev did do enough to win the fight with his pressure. Stuffing Burns' takedowns later in the fight was a very closely contested matchup. Burns looked great in this fight. His stock goes up the roof. I have a video. I'm quite upset with myself, man. As I was walking to the arena, I walked right by the Fighters Hotel. It was right there by the stadium. Meanwhile, don't get me started on the arena over there in Jacksonville. You got the jailhouse right next to the arena. You got the AAA baseball field for the Marlins. You got the Fighters Hotel. It was a very weird little downtown area. Jacksonville is a weird city, man. I don't know why the county jail is right there. You got the people looking at the peepholes, watching everybody walk over to the arena. But not that I really have a problem with that, but, it's just a weird setup. As I see the Fighters Hotel, I said to my boy, we got to pop in there real quick. Guess who I see sitting on the couch right there? Kianzad Chimaev. I did a little loop. I came right back around. I have a video of it. I'll post it on my IG. It didn't come out that good. You could barely see him in it. But I tried to say something real quick, and immediately he was looking at me. No video. Kind of put a bad taste in my mouth, but I'm still a Kianzad fan. But I thought he would be a little bit cooler than that. I basically was just giving him a quick shout out, just saying, hey man, you're gonna smash this guy tonight. And he said, no video. So I really wasn't too happy about that, to be quite honest. And that kind of set the tone for the disappointing night. And which leads me to the second leg of the parlay here, which you guys know the deal, was Petr Yan. And I feel very strongly that he won rounds 1, 4, and 5. And I think the judges stiffed me. We pull up MMA decisions.com once again, and you see, thousands of people have put their take on this fight, and 61.7% of people had Yan winning that first round. He was the one pressuring Sterling. Sterling was on the back foot. Yan didn't do anything ridiculous in the first round, but he won the round, period. So that's how a fight goes, right? You win that round. You win rounds 4 and 5. You win the fight. That's 3-2, period. It doesn't matter. We can go into greater detail on this fight. Yeah, Sterling was able to stifle him with that body triangle, take the back there and hold him there for 2 rounds, which was so boring. But yeah, he definitely won those 2 rounds. And it is Jan's fault for allowing that to happen. But at the end of the day, he still won rounds 1, 4, and 5. So the 8-unit max play has to cash there. But it doesn't. And the judges got me good, man. It was an 8-unit maxer. And you guys know it cost me a lot of money. Straight up, it did cost me a lot of money. I'm not shy to say that. You guys know I like to keep it real with you guys. Cost me a lot of money, and I'm still kind of feeling it, to be quite honest. I drove all the way out to Jayville, had a long drive back, having to think about that loss the entire time. It hurt, man. It hurt. I lost my voice. My voice is just coming back right now, and like I said, it is what it is, though, man. We just got to bounce back. And if you guys want to take a look at this, it's over on my IG. You can see a little bit more in detail how people thought about the fight. The vast majority of people that, in my opinion, know what they're watching there. And it's kind of ridiculous because Sterling now sneaks off with 2 victories in fights that he doesn't deserve to win, but somehow he gets it done. And he's just kind of a fake champ. He is a fake champ. That's what I feel about it. So, again, some of you guys might get annoyed with that. I hope I'm not getting you upset, man. But that's just how I honestly feel about it. And I would hope you guys respect that I keep it real with you at the very least. So I lose those 2 plays, and I felt like they should have cashed. It should have been a 3-for-3 sweep, and it was what it was. And then we go to the main event. I cannot forget to give my respect to Alexander Volkanovski. Excuse me there. What an absolute beast Volkanovski is. Major respect to Volkanovski. He's on his way to possibly becoming the greatest featherweight champ of all time. So major respect to Volkanovski. The striking was just so sharp, and the Korean Zombie was just a step below in regards to the striking. And I think some of you guys had a problem with the stoppage there by Herb Dean, but where do you guys really think that fight was going to go? Herb basically just saved the Korean Zombie some brain cells and some future damage. So you're not going to see me sitting here arguing about the stoppage. Although some people thought it was a quick stoppage, at least in the crowd, people were booing. They wanted to see more action. You know, these fight hungry fans, but Volkanovski's a stud. And that recaps UFC 273. It was a tough one. And we look to move forward, and I'm looking to get big time redemption on this upcoming card. I already have 3 plays locked in, and you guys know I put a lot of work into that card. I felt like I should have had a profitable one. Watch how I bounce back now. You guys know I take this serious. I feel very confident about this upcoming fight card, and it's about that time. Let's move forward to the future fights. So kicking the card off, we have Haile Alatang taking on Kevin Kroom. shout out to Kevin Kroom. You guys know I had the pleasure of interviewing him, and he was definitely one of the coolest dudes I've chatted it up with. But you guys know the routine here, man. I keep it nothing but real when it comes down to breaking down these guys' fights and what I think of their performances inside the UFC. Kevin Kroom had an amazing UFC debut. He was able to clip Roosevelt Roberts and pull off that choke there. If I'm being 100% honest, I think that Roosevelt Roberts wins that fight 90 out of 100 times. And after that fight, Kroom loses to Alex Caceres and just recently Brian Kelleher. Now, in this fight, he's dropping down to make his UFC debut in the bantamweight division here. A guy that's already kind of lanky and thin for the featherweight division. Now going down to the bantamweight division, I really question how this weight cut's going to go for him. I really question what kind of strength that he's going to have down at this division. Alateng is a guy that has he attempted to wrestle in the Olympics representing his country of China. He has a decent wrestling pedigree. He's been working on his striking. He's had some success in the UFC already. We can go through his resume as of recently. He had a victory over Dana Badagarel, a guy that has proven to be a tough knockout artist. He had the split decision victory over Ryan Benoit. He went 3 rounds with Casey Kenny. Casey's a very tough customer. And then in his last fight, it says draw, but he should have won that fight against Gustavo Lopez. He made a mental error, tugged on the cage consistently. He had a point taken away from him in the 3rd round and ended up being a draw there. And that 3rd round, I don't really feel he needed to grab that cage. He could have went back down to the mat. You saw later on that he ended up getting taken down and worked his way right back up and reversed Lopez. It was a mental error, but at the end of the day, his physical abilities are decent. I think he's a decent fighter here. Whereas Kevin Kroom, he has good volume on the feet, and he's an active striker. You guys know he's one of the proteges of James Krause. That's always a good thing. Has a world of experience, a lot of professional experience here. But he is almost 35. He's making this weight cut here. I just don't think that I could. I don't think that I could roll with my boy Kevin Kroom here, which it's tough to say again because I like him a lot. I really do like him. You could check out the full interview that I did with him. It's here on the channel. He's a funny dude. He's a guy that definitely hangs loose. He's a wild dude. You know, he likes to enjoy himself. Where on the other hand, you know, you got a guy in Alateng that I think that is really a serious dude when it comes to his training. You see him over here with the Korean Zombie, and I got to side with Alateng to win this fight. I think that Alateng could actually get the better of the striking exchanges as well, even though he has the reach disadvantage. I've seen Alateng land some big shots in the UFC. We saw Brian Kelleher landing some big shots on Kroom. I don't see any reason why Alateng can't do the same. And then again, the X factor is the wrestling. I could see Alateng getting on top of Kroom. 30 years old, hitting the prime of his career right here. This is a fight that he's got to get. I'm not really sure if Kroom is a UFC caliber fighter. Let's see if he can prove it to us. He goes out here and has a solid performance. Then he now has 2 victories in the UFC. Whether you like the way he got them or not, if pulling off 2 victories in the UFC, being 2-2 then in the UFC, he has an argument that he is a UFC caliber fighter. But I will take Healy Alateng, and we will find the live line here. And we have Kroom right around a plus 155 dog with the comeback on Alateng from the minus 170 up to the minus 190 range right now. So a little below those 2-1 odds there. But again, now if you're going towards the Kroom side, Kroom showed to be active in the first round of that Kelleher fight. He is going to come into this fight with a massive reach advantage. He's a lot more rangy. We'll see how the weight cut goes. Maybe he can keep Alateng on the outside of his jab and score some points, or maybe he pulls off a crafty sub if Alateng forces a takedown. But I'm taking the Mongolian Knight here and Healy Alateng. Sam Hughes taking on Estela Nunez. Now Estela Nunez had a tough UFC debut where she was submitted in the 3rd round by the very strong and brute Ariane Cornalosi. Estela Nunez has shown to have decent striking. She has some knockout victories early in her career. Only 8 professional fights now. She's fought over in 1 championship over in Japan. So she has some big experience to an extent with the limited amount of fights that she's had. She's been in there with Angela Lee, a well-known fighter over at 1FC. That fight was almost 5 years ago, though, so she has not been active at all. going into this fight, following her on IG, we see her putting in work over at American Top Team. You guys know I'm very high on that type of activity here. You see her brushing shoulders with some serious talent. It seems like she's really trying to get her career on track here. So some positive signs. And again, even in that Cornelossi fight that she lost, she showed flashes with her striking early too. She's definitely competent with her striking. I'm letting you guys know that right now. She knows what she's doing there. Sam Hughes, on the other hand, on a 3-fight losing skid, she lost 4 of her last 5 fights. Definitely been having a tough time in there. The loss to Vanessa Demopoulos over on the LFA scene, now a UFC fighter as well. Lost to Tisha Torres. That was her UFC debut where she really got beat down. Lost to Loma Lekbunmi and Luana Pinheiro in her last fight, the talented Brazilian fighter. So at least I will say this, Sam Hughes is fighting decent talent in the UFC. I don't want to be too harsh on her, but she's really not rising to the occasion in the least. She eats a lot of shots on the feet. I mean, she has moments where she shows to have a little bit of power in her hands and whatnot. But, she's a girl that I've also seen reverse down on the mat. I haven't been overly impressed with her grappling either. And I haven't seen nothing from her grappling that shows me that she's going to try to, or she's going to be able to exploit Estella's grappling, which is the recipe I think that she needs to implement to win this fight. So if she doesn't get this fight down to the mat, I definitely believe that Estella gets the better of the striking exchanges and goes on her way to winning this fight. And I don't feel so comfortably just saying that she goes on to winning a decision like I normally say in a lot of these types of fights. I would not be shocked if Estella Nunez lands some big shots, bloodies up Sam Hughes, potentially a TKO or some type of finish. I wouldn't bet my boots on it, but there's a possibility for that type of ending. Again, Nunez has some pop on her strikes, and I'm going to pick her to win this fight here. I think she gets her UFC, I believe she gets her first victory in the UFC here. Slight reach advantage, nothing really going on there. Height's almost identical. We will pull up the live line. Estella Nunez now, there's been some activity on her. We've seen her go from that minus 200 line, even as high up now towards the minus 215 range. So a little bit of action coming in on her. People are just not going to feel that confident in Sam Hughes based on what she's been doing as of recently. But again, you do know the level of competition that she's been in there with. So we'll see how this fight goes. My pick is Estella Nunez. The Glory MMA Fitness product, Trey Ogen takes on Jordan Levet here. Trey will be making his UFC debut. He's 15-4. He has definitely shown to be a very competent grappler. If you break down tape on him, pull up his highlight reel, pull up any fight that you could pull up online on this guy, and you're going to see him showcasing his grappling abilities, finishing fights with his submission skills. That is definitely the better aspect of his fighting game. And on the other hand, you got a guy in Jordan Levet. It's the same story with him. This guy is a talented grappler. I do not think that Jordan Levet is anywhere near an average or a above average striker in this division. I think that's clear. He has shown to be tricky down in the mat, dating back to his Dana White's Contender Series fight where he was able to pull off the arm triangle there. We saw the Matt Wyman slam where he basically, he was in Wyman's guard. Wyman did not let go quick enough and he slammed him down on his head. You got to give him props for a move like that. But again, another grappling type victory there. Claudio Puelles was able to avoid the grappling from him and was able to really exploit his striking. And then Jordan Levet pulled off this submission on Matt Sales in his last fight, which was an official play of mine. But Matt Sales is a guy that very much favors his boxing and his striking. And, you take a mental note there. That was more of a grappling versus striking type matchup. Here's the thing, man. Like I said, Trey Ogen is just as competent, in what I believe, on the mat as Jordan Levet. I think that he could hang with him down there on the mat. I think that he could use his grappling skills to get the fight back up to the feet or stuff the takedowns of Levet, which could be a problem for Levet because Levet, like I said earlier, man, his striking is just, it's really, really not up to par. And from the limited amount of striking I've seen from Trey Ogen, I think it's going to be better than Levet's. And I think you could almost say that for anybody in the UFC or any type of fighter that's getting into the UFC. I have not seen nothing from Levet that I'm impressed with there. I do think that Jordan could hang around in the UFC if the UFC gives him favorable matchups where he's able to take advantage of guys that are not really up to par with the grappling. But You know, Jordan Levitt is an interesting dude, the Monkey King. You know, if he gets a victory, he's going to bust out the split and start shaking it, busting it down. He's an interesting guy to say the least. I got respect for him after coming through for me in that last fight. But I think that Trey is a guy that's well-rounded. He has 19 professional fights now, which is almost double the amount of pro experience as Levitt. And like I said, I think he avoids the tricky grappling of Levitt, avoids any type of submission there. And also, I think that Trey could also hold his own down there if it does go down there. And don't be surprised if he pulls off a sub. He's been very impressive down there. But I more so see him using his grappling to keep the fight standing, where I think he could box Jordan Levitt up a little bit. He could use his basic striking to kind of outpoint Levitt. I will go with Trey to win the fight there. We'll pull up a live line on this fight, and we'll see that Trey Ogden is right around a -130 up to a -135. The comeback on Levitt right around a +110. It's a close fight. When we look at the odds, it's a close fight, and I tend to agree with this line here. It is a close fight. I still want to give Levitt some respect. He's shown to be a tricky guy, and we'll see if he can make something happen here, if he can make some magic happen. But I'll go with Trey, the UFC newcomer. We'll see how he performs. Chris Barnett, Beast Boy, taking on Martin Buday, the Slovakian fighter. He had a big victory on Dana White's Contender Series where he really used his size and just brute strength to dominate his opponent. Ate a couple shots from Lorenzo Hood, really walked right through them, and ended up pulling off the victory there where I don't recall. No, it was not Herb Dean. It was, excuse me, man. Slipping my mind. I just watched the tape on this too, man. It was the referee that was on Joe Rogan, the former Air Force pilot, a ref that I am a fan of. Name slipping my mind right now. I know him very well, but he was forced to jump in there, and I think rightfully so. Buday landed a nasty knee. Buday's pressure was nonstop in that fight. An interesting aspect to this fight is Buday kind of reminds me in a lot of aspects to a guy like Ben Rothwell with the size and certain skills he possesses. Of course, Rothwell much more experienced, but that was a fight that we did see play out where Rothwell was able to kind of bully Barnett constantly going forward, ended up pulling off that submission. Barnett, a guy that's 35 years old, he's only 5'9", carries a lot of weight, but he's an athletic guy. He can move. We saw it in his last fight. He got that nasty wheel kick knockout over Jean Vellante. I mean, you see him jumping around here. He's a different type of fighter. You know, he's one of those guys that really is an athlete, but just is not dieting properly, I would say. And, he could make it work for him, but I'm still not a big fan at the end of the day of a guy carrying all that extra weight. I would love to have seen him be a little bit more disciplined fighting over at the light heavyweight division. He's been a guy that's been around the block actually for a while. I know a lot of people just kind of got familiar with him, but, he's a guy that had, he had a fight. I remember watching let's see where it was. It should be on here. He had a grappling match with Yoel Romero. I remember watching that a while back ago. He's had some kickboxing matches. He had a bare knuckle fight. I mean, he's just been really involved in all types of combat competition. He's been in there with guys like Alex Nicholson. He's really been around the block here. Now, I do believe that he has the ability to possibly land some shots on Buday. Like we saw in Buday's Dana White's Contender Series fight, there was a couple moments in time where he was tagged up. He just walked right through it. I think he has a granite chin. He's shown to have a granite chin and limited amount of fight tape I've watched him. He's a big boy. I think he eats the boxing of Chris Barnett if Barnett lands a couple of shots. And I think Buday pushes forward, and I could see Buday just using his sheer strength and mass to possibly pull off a sub as he wears down Barnett. Or you never know. Maybe he gets Barnett against the cage and just lands some big shots and kind of wears on Barnett. Maybe gets a finish there, or just works his way to a decision victory. At the end of the day, though, I got to go with Buday. No matter how you spin it, Jean Vellante came into that last fight completely out of shape. We know the deal with him now fighting up a heavyweight. I mean, he really was not ready to go for that fight, in my opinion. I still give props to Barnett for landing the shot, but Buday is a guy that is at a different point in his career right now. He's a real legit heavyweight fighter that is trying to make a name for himself in the UFC right now. This is his debut. He's going to be a lot more hungry, and I think that he's the more professional fighter here. He's a massive guy. He's going to have a giant height advantage here, although only a 2-inch reach advantage. So like I said, Barnett with that interesting type of physique. But I think Buday gets it done at the end of the day, regardless. And we take a look at the live line. Buday, action coming in on him. We've seen him as low as -205 and whatnot, up to the -225 range right now. And people like that size advantage. And the only way I really see Barnett winning this fight is if he lands a big shot and really hurts Buday. If he doesn't land that big shot, I think he loses the fight. Jesse, the body snatcher Ronson, taking on Rafa Garcia. First and foremost, Rafa Garcia, shout out to you for coming through on that last official play that I took on you against the UFC newcomer Natin Levy. But if we're calling it how it is, that fight played out a lot closer than I thought it would. Thought Garcia would have handled that more comfortably, and he did not. Now, he did come through in the third round. He really showed to have some grit. He pushed forward, and he took that fight. But at the end of the day, I was expecting to see a little bit more from him. And, there's some question marks about a guy like Garcia. Sometimes he starts off very strong and kind of fades, which is interesting because I know he has put in a lot of work over in Colorado. You would think that his cardio would really be, really above average. You would think he's a workhorse, but he kind of fades in some of his fights. I mean, if you think about the fight that he had against Chris Grutzmacher, was looking very good in the beginning of that fight, landing some nasty strikes, and then completely faded out. But maybe we shouldn't be so harsh on him. Chris is a very durable guy, and Garcia was putting a lot into those shots. So, maybe a lot of fighters kind of will in that fashion. But again, Garcia was breathing heavy in the Natin Levy fight as well. But he did push at the very, very end and took it. So, we'll just go over that briefly. Now, Jesse Ronson, if you guys remember, man, he took that fight on short notice against Nicholas Dalby and got a nasty finish there. It was a rear naked choke submission. He dropped Dalby first and foremost with a nasty hook. You see it overturned here. Jesse Ronson got caught, man, for taking some legit performance enhancing drugs that he swears he didn't know. He doesn't know how they got in his system, but they were legit steroids. Should have had the article here as still up here as well, but they were some type of anabolic steroids that are definitely frowned upon by the UFC. So Ronson got almost over a year and a half banned from the UFC, a suspension, and now he's coming back. Now, keep in mind that fight he took against Nicholas Dalby, that fight, he was massively undersized in that fight against Dalby, but still showed up and handled business, and I have a lot of respect for Dalby. So at the end of the day, I mean, it's kind of weird however you look at that fight, because he showed up, but he was on some type of performance-enhancing drugs. Obviously, you would assume he's not anymore. At least you would assume, because a guy that had that type of issue, USADA is really going to be cracking down on. So I expect maybe Ronson looks a little bit different in this fight. We'll keep an eye on how he looks at the weigh-in. Ronson's a guy that actually fought in the UFC a long time ago. He has 31 professional fights now. This is a guy that we saw fighting over in PFL against high-level competition and Nathan Schultz. Fights over in TKO, which is one of the biggest promotions in Canada. We've seen fighters over there like GSP, Mark Hominick. He's been in there with guys like Alexander Sarnovsky, fighting over in Abu Dhabi. He's been around the world. He has a world of experience. The fighters that he lost to while he was in his first stint in the UFC had a split decision loss, 3 split decision losses to Francisco Trinaldo, Kevin Lee, and Michel Prazeres, all talented, tough fighters. Especially Kevin Lee was more talented back then than as he matured, interestingly enough. But to go to a split decision with all those guys, it does show that you're a capable fighter. Again, on the steroids or not, he still threw a beautiful hook and dropped Dalby. I'm gonna say that Ronson is a little bit more of the more gritty fighter here. And I think, like we said earlier, Rafael Garcia, he kind of has these little humps that he hits in his fights. And I think that Jesse Ronson can kind of capitalize on that, eke out some rounds. I was decently high on Rafa for a little bit. But you know what? I'm going to take Jesse Ronson to win this fight. I'm interested to see how he performs here coming off the long layoff. I know that he was devastated by the suspension. I know he's been grinding and training like crazy from what I was able to pull up. So he's super, super motivated for this fight. This is the biggest fight of his career. And a guy like Rafa, man, sometimes he's just, like I said, he's iffy. And, Jesse Ronson will have a 2.5-inch reach advantage here. 3 inches taller. He's a little bit more of the naturally larger guy here. where in his last fight he was massively undersized against Dalby and still performed. I'll take the larger, tougher fighter in my opinion. Although Rafa is very tough too. This is a good fight. And right now, if you take a look at the live line, you'll see that Jesse Ronson is right around an even dog, actually, with money coming in on him as I record this, because I just looked earlier and he was a plus 110, I believe, or plus 105. So action coming in on him. I guess people are reading the teller's thoughts out there, and I expect to see more action come in on him as this video gets out, and maybe certain other people start to announce that they're on Ronson, and we see some line movement here. And keep an eye on how Ronson looks at the weigh-ins, though. Drakkar Klose taking on Brandon Jenkins, the human highlight reel. He is 0-1 in the UFC. He took on Zhu Arong in his last fight, his UFC debut, and ended up getting finished in that fight and really didn't have too much success there. Drakkar Klose coming off a very, very tough loss against Beneil Dariush, where he landed that big shot first, wobbled Dariush, got a little too overzealous, got clipped going in, and it was a hell of a fight. And I got a lot of respect for Klose. I think that he's an above-average UFC fighter. On the other hand, you got a guy in Brandon Jenkins that I'm not really sure is a UFC caliber fighter. I haven't seen anything that shows that. In this fight, he will have a little bit of a size advantage. He has a 2-inch reach advantage. He's a little bit taller. He shows to have that pitter-patter type of striking style. He could try to score points from the outside. That's going to be the recipe for him to try to get a victory here. But keep in mind, after Klose lost that last fight, I expect him to go back to the well to what he did for a long period of time towards the beginning of his UFC career, and that's working the calf kicks, clinching up, not being the most exciting fighter, but really just doing enough to outclass his opponents or completely control his opponents. He really hasn't been the most exciting fighter, for being quite honest, but he's good and effective at what he does. And after he kind of tried to open up in that Dariush fight and it cost him, I think that he's a little bit more hesitant in there. And I think it benefits him, though, because I think that he's better everywhere this fight goes against a guy like Jenkins, and I think that he shouldn't have a problem getting the victory here. He's a massive favorite. Let me pull up the live line here. I won't go on too much about this fight. I think everyone's going to be on Klose to win this fight. And if you pull up the live line right now, you'll see that Klose is as high, if I could find this here, guys, excuse me, as high as a minus 600 favorite right now. And that's heavy action coming in on him as we speak as well, because that line was not even that high just a couple hours ago. It was more around the minus 500 and the higher minus 400. So a lot of action coming in on him. People are jumping all over that. I'm on Klose to win the fight as well. Hey, you guys, real quick, if you're looking to sign up for a new sports book, reach out to me. I'm going to give you my entire plays for this upcoming fight card for free if you sign up. You're also going to get a bonus when you sign up. They're gonna handle you nice over there. You put $100, you're starting with $150. The rollovers are very simple, very easy. It's the best online sports book in my opinion. Bovada.lv. Reach out to me if you're interested. I'll give you further information. But I definitely will hook you guys up if you sign up through my referral link. All right, I appreciate you guys. Go check them out. Lina Länsberg taking on Pannie Kianzad. Now, Lina Länsberg, coming off a decent layoff here, over 2 years. She did have a child, so she's trying to make her comeback here. She's now over 40 years old, coming off the birth of her child there. Some major question marks, and now she comes back and she fights a girl in Pannie Kianzad, a fellow Swedish fighter. Pannie is a talented striker. She's really put things together over the past couple of years. I know she's coming off that tough loss to Raquel Pennington. You guys know I'm very high in Pennington. We just talked about the official play we hit on her. People really, really overlook Pennington as a fighter. Pannie has a lot of advantages going in this fight. She's more towards the prime of her career. She's been more active, fighting almost 3 times in the last 3 years. Victories as of recently over Alexa Davis, Sajar Eubanks, Betch Coeta, Jessica Rose Clark, and again, Pannie has flashed with her striking. Lina is a decent striker, but quite honestly, some of the victories that she's pulled off as of recently were based off using her grappling and her clinch work, just kind of pushing and grinding her opponents out. I don't think she's going to be able to do that against Pannie, although that will be the recipe. I do think that Pannie will be able to circle out of those types of positions and will be competent enough in the clinch work to get out of those dirty type of situations, where then she will shine with her striking and just being a little bit more of the athletic and more precise striker. And yes, I am favoring Pannie to come through here and get the job done. And again, there's big question marks on Lina. Like I said, she just had the baby. She's in her 40s. We know those are major question marks. She is a tough cookie. So I wouldn't be necessarily shocked if she was able to come in here and drag this to an ugly type of affair and maybe sneak off a split decision. I wouldn't be shocked. But I think that Pannie is definitely in the driver's seat here. And we take a look at the live line, and you see Pannie all the way up to the minus 435 type range. Now, if you guys are noticing a trend here, there's a lot of high lines throughout this fight card. I think that the line is the way that it is based on some of the factors we just talked about. So, yeah, I will go with Pannie Kianzad to win the fight. She's a talented chick, and I look forward to seeing her get a victory here and working her way up to some big-name fights as she just had the momentum recently. Was a little bit derailed. I think that she starts to get things going again here. Devin, the Brown Bear Clark, taking on William, the Nightmare Knight. Now, this fight is up at the heavyweight division here. Two guys that have fought at the light heavyweight division, but this fight is at the heavyweight division. Now, keep in mind, a lot of people were being very harsh on William Knight for coming in so much overweight in his last fight. It was actually a UFC record for the highest disparity in weight from the limit. But what a lot of people didn't really realize, including myself, to be quite honest, or not that I didn't realize, but that I didn't emphasize as much, as he did take that fight on short notice. And, when a fighter takes on a fight like that on short notice, we shouldn't be so harsh on him. Props to him for even taking that fight against Maxim Grishin. And that was a fight that he looked very, very questionable. Didn't look like the same old William Knight that I know. A fighter that we've seen on an upward trajectory since coming off Dana White's Contender Series show. This is a guy that got into the MMA game late. He's a freak athlete. And that was definitely a step back. Now the UFC is giving him a heavyweight matchup here. But again, it is against a guy that is a natural light heavyweight fighter. We've seen William Knight struggle before with fighters that have good technical wrestling, because William Knight is not up to par there. He uses more of his freakish athletic ability to wrestle and grapple. He needs to kind of polish that up. Well, Devin Clark is a guy that's a legit wrestler. And he's a workhorse as well. Devin Clark's not the most talented with his striking. That's definitely one of his flaws. And I think that William Knight may have a benefit there. In fact, I do believe he has a benefit there. We've seen Knight throw some athletic and unorthodox type of strikes. We've seen him knock out a guy with a flat, stiff arm. I don't think we've ever seen that. If you guys remember the knockout I'm talking about, his arm was completely straight. You would think that there'd be so much impact on the elbow as that hits, but all the impact kind of went to the guy's head and knocked him out. And that was against, excuse me here, I'm pull that fight up real quick. That was against Fabio Charant. It was a weird counter left hook, but he's shown that type of power and that type of explosiveness. But you know what? You guys know I'm a big fan of Knight's. I've rolled with him. He's came through. He's made money for me. I've had official plays on him. He's also cost me money at times. I've had a losing play on him. I had a play on him against Maxim in that last fight. And I'm not just holding a grudge here. I'm not picking him to win this fight for the sheer fact that he looked very, very questionable in that last fight. And he hasn't shown to me that he's really fixed some holes in his wrestling. And maybe I'm being a little harsh on him. Maybe he's shown something to us, but I think a guy like Devin Clark can really, really push the pace with the grappling, really hold Knight against the cage, make this a dog type of grappling fight. And I think that he can cut some corners and use his technical wrestling to eke this fight out. Again, we saw William Knight on his back in his last fight against Grishin. I think that Clark probably has better wrestling than Grishin. Maybe the X factor here is the fact that Knight did take that fight on short notice and he didn't really look like himself. Maybe he shows up here and looks like he has in some of his better fights. He's a very confident fighter. We've seen him, and in the fights against Alonzo Menafield and Fabio Charant, he's very confident on the feet. He feels like he's gonna get the better of the exchanges in there, the way he's looking and talking to his opponent in there with his body language. He's a very confident fighter, but I gotta favor the wrestler here and Devin Clark. I really do. And we'll take a look at the live line. And, we're looking at a line right now on Devin Clark of minus 170, pretty much almost across the board, right around that range. And the comeback on William Knight from plus 145 to plus 150 is what I've been mostly seeing. And that's a similar theme with a guy like William Knight. For some reason, he always tends to be right around that plus 150 range. And he's came through, like I said, as a dog before against Alonzo Menafield. He was a slight dog. There was a couple other fights where he came in as a dog and came through. So does he do that again here? I favor Clark. I do favor Clark. And real quick, I just want to point out, Clark, the slightly larger man. Clark, although he lost 2 fights in a row, very tough outings for him against Ian Cutelaba and Anthony Smith. He brought the fight. He was going forward. He's a tough customer. But I do think that Clark gets it done. And I think the line's pretty accurate. I think it's an accurate line here. All right, this fight was actually just announced as I just started recording this episode. Tapology just changed up on me right before I was sitting down to record here. So I didn't have a lot of time to crunch the tape. But I know these fighters fairly well. And I'm going to give you my insight based off just the names Mounir, Lazzez, and Ange, Loosa from fight tape I've done on them in the past and what I know from them. In fact, I just saw Loosa fight just recently. If you guys saw that exciting fight card, that ex-MMA fight card where he took on John Howard, that was a stacked fight card for a promotion that not a lot of people know of. It was full of ex-UFC fighters. And in that fight, John Howard was bringing the fight. You got to give props to Howard, the old veteran. But Loosa was definitely a step ahead. Loosa, a fighter that favors his striking. His striking is his bread and butter. He has been working on things, and he does train with some of the best fighters in the game over at Sanford MMA. Mounir Lazzez is definitely a striking first type of fighter as well, an excellent kickboxer. He's going to be the slightly taller fighter here. He's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage, which is something that's not necessarily new when he steps in there. He's a very rangy fighter. He's coming off a very tough loss against Warlley Alves, where he kind of broke down in that fight. Because before that, people were very, very high on him after he had his UFC debut victory over Abdul Razak Al Hassan, where he looked phenomenal. That fight did take place in Abu Dhabi, I believe. This is an interesting fight here, especially as it was just matched up last minute. Like I said, though, Loosa just fought recently. I'm curious what he was doing, since this last fight. Hopefully he didn't let himself go. I mean, he was in phenomenal shape, as you see here. But you do keep in mind, I mean, look at the back muscles on him here. I mean, he was in phenomenal shape for this fight. But you do keep in mind that Mounir Lazzez was training for this date here. And initially, Mounir Lazzez was supposed to be fighting, Zaleski dos Santos was the initial fight. Zaleski did just pull out. And Zaleski is a talented striker as well, the Capoeira king. So stylistically, not too much of a difference here. I think these guys are going to put on a striking affair. And, Loosa is definitely live here, in my opinion. I think he is live, but I like Mounir Lazzez. I really, really like what he showcased in that Abdul Razak Al Hassan fight. He's tough. He could take a shot. And although, like I said, he did break down in that last fight against Alves, I'm going to say that fight was a little bit more, excuse me there. I'm going to say that fight was a little bit more of just an off day at the office for him. I'm going to say that he's going to right the ship here. And the sniper is going to come through here. I think it's going to be a close matchup, but Lazzez will be more technical. He'll be throwing some nasty leg kicks, and his boxing will be slightly sharper than Ange Loosa's. And I would expect Mounir to be a little bit on the front foot, being a little bit more so the aggressor here. But we'll see how that plays out. But I will edge Lazzez. And if we, I don't think they're going to pull up a live line here. But from what I've seen, if I was doing some research, I think we're looking at right around a minus 200 line on Lazzez, with the comeback on Loosa right around plus 170. That's what I was pulling up from, again, these lines that were put out there very quickly. We'll see what kind of line movement we have there. Again, the fight was just announced. Maybe this fight settles more in with Lazzez, like a minus 190 favorite. We'll see. Maybe people don't like the fact that Loosa was taking this fight on such short notice, and they think maybe he's at a little bit of more of a disadvantage, and maybe we see action continue to come in on Lazzez. That's a possibility. I got Lazzez to win the fight. Taking place in the featherweight division, we got Pat Sabatini taking on TJ Laramie. This is a tough fight for TJ Laramie. He's coming off a loss against Derek Minner, where he made a big-time mental error, stuck his head right in the guillotine, just gave it like a gift, And, guess what? Now he's matched up against Pat Sabatini, a grappling whiz, a grappling ace. And TJ Laramie is going to be substantially undersized here. Going into this fight, he's 2 inches shorter. He's at a 4-inch reach disadvantage. I really wonder if TJ Laramie is a natural featherweight fighter. Maybe I'm looking a little bit too much into this, but he's definitely been undersized, man, when you watch some of his fights. And he's a technical striker. He's a tough kid. Looked good on Dana White's Contender Series show. Looked good on the show. Keep in mind that he did hurt Daniel Swain early in that fight. He had that rib injury. Swain was trying to fight through it, and he just wasn't able to really do anything there. And Laramie was kind of stifling his grappling and controlling him down there, landing some shots, and got the victory there. Pat Sabatini, in my opinion, is a whole different animal. I've been very impressed from what I've seen from him. The victory over Tristan Connolly, used that grit and that grappling to solidify that fight. Pulled off a nasty heel hook on Jamal Emmers, a stud fighter. And then in his last fight again against Tucker Lutz, a very tough fighter. I'm high on Tucker Lutz. He goes in there and out-grapples him as well. I find it hard to see TJ Laramie stuffing the takedowns and stifling the grappling of Sabatini, where he could try to use the striking that we see here. And again, he is a technical striker. I like how he switches stances. He's light on his feet, diverse with the attacks on the feet. But I just think that Sabatini is going to close the distance here and maul him, if I'm being quite honest. And I kind of favor Sabatini getting the finish via submission, probably most likely. Keep in mind also Sabatini, 31 years old, cruising into the prime of his career with 19 professional fights, while TJ Laramie has had a lot of pro fights now, 16 pro fights, but still only 24 years old, still growing into his body as a man. I think that Sabatini is going to manhandle him here. And I'm not going to go on too much about this fight. That the Renzo Gracie Philly product and Sabatini is a stud. I'm quickly becoming a believer in him, a big believer. And I have him winning the fight here. And like I said, most likely via sub if you're looking for a prop bet. Pat Sabatini, the line minus 450 up to the minus 500 range. Another fight that we've seen action very recently as well. We've seen action coming in on Sabatini, and the line's getting steamed here. Very high line. And I think it's that size advantage and that grappling, showcasing that on both ends. The grappling showcase that Sabatini has been showing, and the grappling showcase that Laramie just showed, making a very, very elementary mistake in there. It sure was an elementary mistake. Just put his head right under the armpit and just gave it to my boy Mounir like a gift. And you guys know Mounir has a nasty grip on that guillotine. So my pick is Pat Sabatini. Mayra Bueno Silva, the Shitara, taking on Yanan Wu. Mulan, who has only won one of her last 4 fights. She's been hitting a difficult time in her pro career here. She's coming in as a plus 300 dog. She's still only 25 years old. A lot of room for growth. About to be 26. A talented striker is Wu. Recent losses to Jocelyn Edwards, Mizuki, and Noah. She had the victory against Lauren Mueller, where she pulled off that armbar, and the victory over Gina Mazzani. Then you go back to some fights outside the UFC. Mayra Bueno Silva, interesting fighter here. She has 10 professional fights. Now, as of recently, she had that loss to Manan Farot. You guys know the deal, man. Manan is the truth. We're not going to put her under the fire there. She was able to survive that fight. It was pretty rough for her in that 3rd round, but she survived the fight. She still showcased she's a talented fighter in her own right. Before that, she has the majority draw. Now, that was based on, we talked about this earlier. Now, once again, a common theme. There was a point deduction based on a cage grab in that fight, something that she did not have to do, but she did it early. And as the fight progressed, she really started to shine. She landed some big shots on De La Rosa, bloodied her up, busted her whole nose up. And Mayra Bueno Silva has now shown that she has good striking ability, and she also has submission skills as well. We saw her pull off a beautiful armbar against Mero Barella. Yanan Wu, if she potentially tries to use her grappling in this fight, which we've seen her do. We saw her take down Jocelyn Edwards. We saw her reversed. We saw Edwards tugging on that armbar throughout that entire 1st round. If Yanan Wu presses with her grappling, which she has shown she has some decent grappling as well, if she goes that route, because I don't think she's going to feel too comfortable striking with Silva for the entirety of this fight, I think she could be in some serious trouble being subbed as well. You keep an eye on that prop bet for Mayra Bueno Silva, maybe pulling off an armbar. We saw Yanan Wu giving that armbar to Jocelyn Edwards. I think Mayra Bueno Silva is a a better version of a fighter than Jocelyn Edwards. And I have a tough time picking Yanan Wu in this spot here. Yanan Wu is slightly taller, 2 inches taller. Nothing really going on there. But again, Mayra, Bueno Silva, this is a girl that has some legit potential here. If she could keep her mental game straight, she has to be a little bit more focused in there. I really didn't like the way she tugged on that cage and gave Keith Peterson an opportunity there to take that point away and ended up costing her the fight. Although she did lose one round as well, she got taken down, but we saw she was able to avoid any real danger down on the mat, and she was able to adjust and not consistently be taken down in that fight. And she has some pop on her strikes. I like her to win this fight here. Mayra Bueno Silva right now, as we speak, and we're recording this Tuesday afternoon, 6:22 Eastern time zone, 6:22 p.m. We're looking at a line of minus 400 up to the minus 480 range, 450 range. Another big-time favorite on this card. It's a common theme. We talked about it. I think Mayra Bueno Silva gets the job done here, though. If she doesn't, keep an eye on Yanan Wu consistently pushing the grappling and maybe stealing some rounds here. But I have a tough time seeing her consistently doing that. She is young, though. Maybe we see some growth in her game. But I got Silva. Now, this is a fun fight here. Miguel Baeza taking on Ange Fialho. This is a fight where both these guys are very talented strikers. I expect both of them to go out there slinging guns. Ange Fialho, a guy that some of you guys are really just starting to get familiar with as he just made his UFC debut against Michel Pereira. He did lose that fight, but I think he put out a good showing of himself. Now, before that, he was out there outside of the UFC fighting over at UAE Warriors, and he was knocking dudes out left and right. We saw the big knockout that he had over at XMMA. We were talking about that promotion earlier. We saw that big knockout that he had against James Vick, the human punching bag, the Homer Simpson of MMA, James Vick. And but on a serious note, James Vick is the human punching bag of MMA. But on a more serious note, Ange Fialho is a guy that really carries some dynamite in his fists. And I think he has all the potential to string off a couple knockout victories in the UFC when it's all said and done. Now, he's getting put to the fire here. He already dropped his UFC debut, and now he's fighting a very talented fighter, Miguel Baeza. You don't want to start your career 0-2. Excuse me, not your career, but you don't want to start off in the UFC 0-2. You don't know how long you'll be hanging around. If you lose another fight, the UFC is not going to just give you gifts here. Miguel Baeza is a very technical fighter, beautiful leg kicks, nasty striking in his hands, all that. He's a very talented fighter. We saw him come up through Dana White's Contender Series. This was a guy that was very, very hyped up at one point in time. He's ran into some turbulence. This was his last post, I do believe. And he says, what a humbling year. Can't seem to get it right. I apologize to my team, my teammates, my family, my friends, and all those who support me. I failed again. Thanks to all those who reached out after the fight. I'm fine physically. All right. So this is a guy that is or was. I mean, he probably got his stuff together, but especially after those losses, this was a guy that was really feeling it. I'm sure losing 2 fights like that after being undefeated before those 2 fights. It's a major jump from where you're at in your career. You're 10-0. You're in the UFC. You're a top prospect, and then you go out there, and then you get knocked out. And first off, in his last fight, he gets knocked out against KS Williams. Before that, he loses a fight to Santiago Ponzinibbio, where he got hurt in that fight too and slowed down a little bit. So I know from reading what I just read and looking into this situation that Miguel Baeza is extremely motivated for this fight. I'm sure he's been putting in a hell of work for this fight. I'm sure he's been grinding it out, sharpening up his skills. He's 29 years old, cruising into the prime of his career. I think that we see the best version of Miguel Baeza that we've ever seen as far as cardio, conditioning, and all that. I hope that he's sharpening up some things with his striking defense, because that's where we've seen him have trouble before. And even if you go back to the, excuse me, we're going to run it back real quick because I'm going to talk about a couple of these fights. If you go back to the Dana White's Contender Series fight against Victor Reina, he was hurt early in that fight and almost finished. He came back in that fight. He showed to have great will, and he was very tough in that fight. But even in some of these other fights, the Matt Brown fight, Matt Brown landed a couple big shots on him before he got the finish on him. So there's some striking defensive flaws there. And a guy like Ange Fialho, will look to capitalize on that. If Andre could land a big shot, don't be surprised if that possibly happens. Miguel Baeza slightly taller, reach is almost the same. I'm going to go with Miguel to win this fight. I've been a fan of his. I think he's a very talented fighter when he puts it all together. I hope that he kind of slows the pace of this fight down a little bit. I hope he doesn't get caught up in a barn burner type of fight where they just start slinging it nonstop, because I could see Baeza getting caught with a shot that he ends up wilting a little bit more so, while Fialho might be able to eat some of those up and go forward. He's a very durable fighter. But I still say Baeza gets it done, man. He's just going to be a little bit quicker, a little bit more diverse with his strikes. From a betting perspective, I'm not really crazy about grabbing that line on Baeza because I think Fialho is very live. I think that this line should be more of like a minus 140, 150 line on Baeza. Maybe like a plus 120, plus 130 on Fialho. So that's how I'm feeling about the fight from a betting perspective. I hope Baeza can right the ship here. In the co-main event, we have two guys making their UFC debut. So that kind of shows you what kind of card this is. But if you don't know the full summary on these guys, you might be kind of missing it here, because both these guys are coming off Dana White's Contender Series, but these are two guys that looked very, very good in the show. Both had victories in their last DWCS fight. Caio Borralho, I guess that's how they pronounce it. Caio Borralho is a guy that has actually fought on Dana White's Contender Series twice and got 2 victories. The first fight was not impressive enough, even though it was over a guy in Aaron Jeffrey, who is one of the more talented fighters outside of the UFC, which just was a little bit of a lackluster type of fight. It wasn't so exciting, so Dana White wasn't really on Caio there. But Caio went back and lit the show up with that knockout victory over Jesse Murray. Now, Gadzhi, Omargadzhiev, this guy has been very impressive. He's 13-0. He's undefeated as a pro. The victory that he had over Janzi Silva, he looked very, very competent with his grappling, eventually even dropping back for that knee bar and getting it. It was very, very impressive. But you can tell that this is a guy that pushes the pace. And if you pull up some of his earlier pro fights too, if you pull up some fight tape on him, this is a guy that's just extremely competent with his grappling. He controls his opponents, and he's a very dangerous fighter. He's working on his striking as well. He has some elements there as well. This is a big test for him, though. This is definitely a big test for him. Caio, 10-1 as a pro. He's going to have a big-time reach advantage in this fight, an 8-inch reach advantage here, although Gadzhi is actually the taller fighter. So very interesting. I've been a little bit back and forth on this fight, and I'm going to tell you guys where I settled in here in a second. But now, if Caio's going to win this fight, I truly believe he's going to want to keep this fight standing and use that karate type striking style that he uses. He's very light on his feet. He can land some nice boxing strikes. Seems to be well-rounded as well. We saw him stuffing Aaron Jeffrey's takedowns and really controlling Aaron Jeffrey in those clinch exchanges, which is impressive to me. Jeffrey is a workhorse. And, so he has that going for himself there. But I do believe at the end of the day, the striking is what's going to lead him to victory here. Where on the other hand, Gadzhi is going to be going to his grappling at one point in time in this fight. I truly believe that. When you watch his fights, it always ends up going there at one point in time. Now, like I said, he's working on some things with his striking. He's not completely inadequate up there as well. This guy's a real athlete. He's a stud. And don't be surprised if he showcases some things there as well. So like I said, I've been back and forth on this fight here. And I'm going to actually settle in with Gadzhi here. Just breaking down tape on this guy. He seems to have a little bit of that it factor there. When he goes to his wrestling, man, he's really, really good at what he does there. And although Caio has the possibility to stuff those takedowns and make him pay, I just favor that Gadzhi gets it done there. I think that even if he doesn't do anything significant, he'll do enough there to take this fight. I think he'll get a takedown. I think he'll get the side control. Maybe he pushes Caio up against the cage. I think he controls the clinch game there. He's very technical with the way that he cuts corners on his takedowns. This isn't a guy that's just some brute strength type of guy. He's very, very technical in there in all aspects of his grappling. And I'm not as worried about that reach disadvantage as maybe some are. I think that Gadzhi's footwork is good. He knows how to get on the inside. He knows how to close the distance. And I have a feeling that's what he's going to do there. But I'm not extremely confident in that pick at all. I think that Caio is very live. I do think that he's very live. And this is a fight that I'm very, very interested in. I'm very, very eager to see how this fight plays out. And look who it is over here. Muhammad Mokaev, one of the top up-and-coming prospects in the game right now. These guys are doing something right over there. You guys know that the Dagestani fighters are just not to be reckoned with, man. These guys are serious. And I think you can add another name there. And the 14-0 Gadzhi, Omargadzhiev is going to be my pick. And we're going to pull up the live line right now. And he's right around a -140. So people respecting Caio, which is good. It's a good fight. And I'm glad to see people on the other side of the fence as well. I'm glad not everybody's just steaming Gadzhi. Hopefully you guys aren't too harsh on me, for picking the slight favorite here. I mean, I got a dog pick here. There's a lot of heavy favorites here. But when I do break the tape down on this fight, I would recommend that you guys edge more of the Gadzhi side, even towards the -140 line, which I think it's a decently accurate line. It's a decently accurate line. I think if you're on the fence, I would edge that side more so. If you're going to want to try to get value on Caio, maybe you hope that Gadzhi gets steamed a little bit more so, and you can grab Caio more around the +135, up to the +150 range. I think that you'd be getting more value there. Where I'm not sure how much value is on that +120 line there. So that's kind of how I feel about the fight. Hey guys, if you're interested in working with me with my official plays, do not hesitate to reach out. I got all my contact information below. You could shoot me a DM on Instagram, shoot me a DM on Twitter, or email me at mmafortuneteller@gmail.com. I've been killing it this year. You guys know we had a rough card, this previous card, but you guys know what my thoughts were on it. I think that we still have the right recipe. We were going about things the right way. Sometimes the judges are going to catch up with you. It's going to happen time to time. And long term, we do work over here. And you guys know when I have a losing card, which I really didn't have a losing card, but technically I did. You guys know I'm chomping at the bit and I'm coming back in a major way. I already have 3 official plays locked in. I will not lose back-to-back cards here. I'm going in, and I recommend you target these plays with me. Reach out to me. I'll give you my pricing, and I would love to work with you guys. All right, we made it to the main event here. Vicente Luque taking on Belal Muhammad. A lot of you guys know me and Belal don't really get along. Let's go pull up Belal Muhammad's Instagram real quick. Let's see how he's doing. Bully B 170. Bully B blocked me. And I think he blocked me, if I remember correctly, it was for a very corny reason. It wasn't even a big deal. I think that's like his thing. He likes to brag about blocking everybody. Belal Muhammad is not my type of guy, if I'm being quite honest. And luckily for me, watching this fight, you got a guy in Vicente Luque. He's one of my favorite fighters in the game. So I really get to sit back and pull the popcorn out while I watch this one. And Vicente Luque is a guy I have a lot of respect for. This guy has constantly came through for me. For whatever reason, he's always at a bargain line. People really just don't seem to respect what he's about for some reason. I don't understand why. One of the most technical strikers in the game, has showed time and time again that he's very, very adequate and competent with his grappling. You saw him in his last fight pulling off that beautiful Darce choke against Michael Chiesa. That was an official play of mine. I've had a lot of official plays on Luque dating back. Took him over Woodley. I had him over Randy Brown. I mean, I've been throwing official plays on Luque, if I'm being honest and being transparent with you guys. You guys know the deal for a long time. And against Stephen Thompson, I did not have an official play on him, and that's not BS there. You guys know, especially you go back 2 years ago, I was very, very high on Stephen Thompson. He's one of my favorite fighters in the game. Calling it for what it is, which I'm going to go to my next point. Stephen Thompson is not the same fighter these days. And, Belal Muhammad just defeated him 3 months ago. Stephen Thompson's a completely different version of himself as of recently. He has got up there in age, and it's caught up with him. The footwork and the movement's not there. He's not able to avoid the cage. He's been getting taken down. And that's what Belal Muhammad did. Now, I want to pull something up here. Belal Muhammad, since his loss against Vicente Luque back in 2016, remember, Luque already had that first-round knockout over him. Mind you, Luque was looking much sharper in the striking exchanges for as long as it lasted, even before the knockout, throwing quicker leg kicks. He was quicker to the strike. His footwork was better. And since then, Belal Muhammad has victories over Randy Brown, Jordan Mean, the Tim Means fight. You guys know I respect Tim Means. That was a split decision victory. Chance re-encounter, lost to Jeff Neal, Curtis Millender, Takashi Sato, Lyman Good, Diego Lima, and then the older versions of Stephen Thompson and Damian Maia. I'm not as high on that resume as if from that last fight. If you want to run it back from Vicente's point of view, he had the loss over Leon Edwards. Leon's a stud. Victory over Nico Price, got the finish there. Chad Lepre, he disappeared, but Jalen Turner, a stud. Brian Barberena, very tough. Mike Perry, a very tough, underrated fighter. Another victory over Nico Price. Tyrone Woodley, I mean, a little bit, I'll be honest, a little bit past his prime, of course, as well, but the Michael Chiesa victory was a big one. The ones that stand out to me, the Michael Chiesa victory, the Nico Price victory, Mike Perry, and Jalen Turner. I'm very high on Jalen Turner, and to go out there and knock him out on the feet like that, not go out there and just wrestle Turner, which we know Turner and towards the beginning of his UFC career is lacking some grappling and wrestling abilities, and he was exploited there. No, Luque goes out there and knocks him out on the feet. I mean, this guy is a stud. He's so technical on the feet. There's without a doubt a very likely avenue that Luque goes out there and gets the knockout again. This guy can go out there and put anybody out. If Muhammad wants to try to make this a boring fight where he's just trying to wrestle him down and try to steal a decision, good luck, because Luque is very dangerous there. He'll wrap up a darce on you. He'll reverse you. He'll make you pay coming in. He'll throw a knee on you. Luque is a stud. I still remember him from the Black Zillions versus American Top Team Ultimate Fighter show. He was so young on that show, and he's still only 30 years old after all the wars and fights he's been through. You guys know him on Vicente Luque, 21-7. I hope that he works his way towards the tippy top of this division, maybe fights for the belt one day. Big fan of Vicente's. And we'll pull up the live line. Vicente right now, right around a -170, up to that -190 range right now. And again, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if the line goes up. If people wake up, maybe the line goes more towards -230, 240. Keep an eye on that line. If you're taking Bully B, you're hoping that he makes this a boring fight where he uses his muscles and his wrestling ability. He's been coming in phenomenal shape, and maybe he's able to make this a grueling fight where he takes a decision. And real quick, we'll see how these guys fare off physically. Both 5'11". Vicente Luque with the 5-inch reach advantage there as well. And Vicente Luque will be my pick, as you guys know. That's going to be the case there. So Vicente Luque to win that fight. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up UFC Vicente Luque versus Belal Muhammad. Appreciate all you guys for rolling through this video with me. Again, keep in mind, big things coming up. I'll have the new studio set up very, very soon. In fact, I'll be recording my next episode in there. It'll take some time to set up everything how I want it to be set up, but you guys are going to be riding through this journey with me. Big things coming. I told you guys, live videos, all that coming very, very soon. I appreciate you guys in a major way. And for my closing out note, I will say this. I really hope that the judging system gets fixed with our sport. Whether or not you agree specifically on the fights that we spoke about earlier, there's been a lot of questionable fights throughout the last couple cards, and fights that really didn't even have an impact on me. But there's been some very questionable calls. Take note of the names of the judges, of some of these judges. I mean, I really shouldn't say that, but look into who some of these judges are that are judging these fights. A lot of them have no clue about the sport of MMA. A lot of them came over from boxing, from the boxing judging system. Some of these people, I truly believe, and from my knowledge of what I've heard and known about certain judges, they don't even know anything about the sport of MMA. They're learning on the job. It's sad, and I don't understand why we cannot get former fighters, even fighters that are not UFC caliber, but pro fighters that have retired, that have fought in the regional scenes, that know what they're watching. Why can we not get the commission to pay them the right amount of money, where we could have guys and girls that know what they're watching and can judge the sport the right way? Somebody's got to step up and do it. There's probably obviously there's probably a lot of things that are back jamming it up, and hopefully somebody could do something about it. I don't think I have the ability to really do anything about it. I have enough things on my hands over here that I'm working on, and who the hell's going to listen to the teller complain about judging? A guy that caps MMA fights for a living complaining about the judging system. I don't know. Maybe I'm selling myself short, but if you're out there and you're listening and you have some type of authority where you could make a difference, hopefully you could do something about it. But as a whole, we need to keep speaking up. Like I'm saying something right now, And hopefully when you guys are listening, you say something to somebody else. If enough of us keep complaining about the situation, hopefully something's done about it down the line. So I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts on that? Again, I know I love when some of you guys come out the woodwork and you say, oh, stop crying and complaining. Listen, I'm just calling it for what it is. I mean, this is what I do here. I speak on the mic and I say my opinions on things, and it is what it is. So hopefully I don't rub you guys the wrong way with that, with my opinions on that. But I appreciate every single one of you guys. As you guys can see, my voice is still kind of messed up from this past fight card. I was screaming, going crazy. The Kianzad Chimaev versus Gilbert Burns fight took my voice away. It was really a great time at the event. A couple things could have went differently, but overall it was a good time. I bumped into some of you guys. Shout out to you guys that I met that came up to me. I was in the bathroom at one point in time, and somebody said, "Oh, the teller." They were going crazy that they saw the teller. I was waiting outside for him to come out. Then another guy came up and he saw me. Hey, the teller. I mean, I was bumping into people. It was a cool feeling. Bumping into people that watch my show here and that were giving me respect. It was really cool, man. Shout out to all you guys. I appreciate all you guys, every single one of you guys that are watching this right now. So on that note, I'm gonna sign out. Appreciate all you guys. Enjoy the fights. Keep up with me on Instagram and Twitter. It's all below. Signing out. Teller.
Welcome to the show. This is the MMA fortune teller. Yeah.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.